Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Al Bunshaft, Dassault Systems Executive and Base 11 board member. This afternoon, we're going to talk a little bit about some emerging technologies, and then we're going to drill down in a few specific areas such as fintech. We wanted to include this section because while we've centered on some specific fields, we talked about aerospace, life sciences, we'll go into some other detail. The STEM and STEAM fields are by no means limited to these areas. They're constantly expanding. And so some other areas we wanted to touch on and talk to you about as an example include cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, data analytics, autonomous systems. Autonomous systems are in so many areas of our world today, whether it's your home robotic vacuum cleaner, whether it's an automated assembly line, whether it's your vehicle that now has autonomous capabilities, advanced manufacturing, which uses a lot of these technologies, augmented reality and virtual reality, private equity and venture funding. These are all incredible opportunity areas that you can bring your STEM and STEAM skills to and make a real impact in an industry. We're not going to have time to go into these areas today, but I will say that one common theme we see in all these areas is digital transformation. The digital transformation of all industries is taking place today. If you step back, many of these disciplines are computer science related. Even in the venture investment field, many, if not most, new companies have a digital aspect to them. Frankly, my vantage point is if they don't, I'm not sure they're going to be a winner. So we can start by observing that information technology and computer science are going to be critically important areas of knowledge, I would say, no matter what field that you go into. Many of these are cross-cutting topics, topics that will revolutionize all industries. For example, at Dassault Systems, we work with consumer products companies, companies like Procter & Gamble, the largest consumer product company in the world. Do you know that consumer products companies use augmented reality and virtual reality to research how we shop, to try to understand what's the value of their product being on a shelf at eye level? That's called product placement in the consumer product industry. You have to pay to have your product on the end cap of a supermarket. And when you have multi-billion-dollar brands, how do you know how much that's worth? And how do you know if the promotion that you're paying for to position your product in a store, in a special place, is going to pay off? Well, if you know more about how we behave when we shop, when we're in a store, you can start to do return on investment calculations for that. And they have large virtual laboratories to research that and help understand it. I shared that with you just as an example for maybe one area that you might not realize. And I guarantee you these technologies are being used in many, many areas that you don't realize. Let's talk about cybersecurity. What company isn't exposed to cybercrime? And how much is it worth to protect your data and your reputation, right? And finally, all of this is linked to the economic competitiveness of our companies, of our communities, and ultimately of our country. And so there's a direct linkage between technology and our economy and the vibrance of our industries. Our next guest is Mr. Eric Kelly. Eric is the chairman and CEO of Overland Tandberg, a leader in data storage in the industry. Overland Tandberg empowers organizations to securely manage and protect their digital assets. I hope that you'll take a look at Mr. Kelly's bio, which I don't have the time to discuss here. He brings a wealth of industry experience. He also served for 8 years on the Executive Office of the President of the United States Council on Advisors on Science, Technology, and Advanced Manufacturing, a steering committee under the Obama administration. So we know that Eric can share a lot of valuable insights with us on these topics. Welcome, Eric, to the Next Frontier Conference, and thank you for being here. I'd like to ask you really to talk with us about two broad areas. First, tell us a little bit about your own personal journey, the industry you're in now, your company, and what areas are hot, especially for the future? And then if you would, what advice do you have for someone in school or early career that you'd like to share with us? Eric, again, thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours.
Thanks for the kind introduction, and be happy to talk about both of those points. First, I'm excited to be part of the conference, and the digital transformation is amazing. I mean, it's exponential. I mean, I've been in the business for over 30 years, and I can tell you, I thought things were going to slow down, but this is probably the most vibrant and exciting time in terms of being involved in technology. And when you think about what's transpiring today and look into the future, I can tell you a couple of things. When I started my career 30 plus years ago, it was really a combination between trying to understand how to get into the financial services industry. And I thought, well, I will go into the technology space because I need to understand it in order to be successful in the financial services industry. What happened is I never got out of the technology. It became so exciting. I've been doing it for the last 30 years. But I started off with a company called IBM and really advanced my career there and spent some time doing some international business. And I learned early on in my career, which I think is very important for you to think about, is the world became smaller and smaller. And so I started thinking about global intellect. And so when you think about what global intellect means, it means understanding how to do business around the world from a global footprint, but also understanding what we do in that's in common, but just importantly what they do that is different. So if you think about if you're going to go and do business in Italy, it's going to be totally different than if you do business in Singapore or if you do business in Germany or you do any. So if you think about global intellect and understanding the differences and then how they're leveraging technology. And that's kind of been the beginning of my journey in terms of understanding globally how to leverage and use technology around the world. But when you think about what has transpired, I can tell you the exciting thing for me, it seems like every 7 to 10 years I start over again. Because if you think what's happened with technology, it's hard to even imagine a world without Google, a world without Twitter, a world without Instagram, etc. But when you think back, those companies are 10 years old. And so every 10 years, you're going to find another transition of technology. And when you think about now the Internet of Things, and what that means is that everything that you touch, everything that you do has a component of technology in there. So when you think about the digital transformation, you can't live in this world without watching the digital transformation. I just named a couple of companies that have been driving that. And I can guarantee you that in the next 7 to 10 years, there's going to be another set of companies that are going to be driving the next set of of transformation. So if you think about, as Al mentioned, the exciting part to me was sitting on the Obama administration, really looking at it from that lens in terms of what is happening in science, what's happening in technology, and what's happening in advanced manufacturing. And then you layer on that in terms of the economic side, whether it's the investment side between private equity firms, between venture capital, and they're all intertwined. You can't have one without the other. And so the exciting part, when I talk to you about the future of technology, it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. The STEM, the science, the understanding how that works is going to be extremely important no matter what you do. Whether you're a chef, whether you're in financial services, whether you're in the automotive industry, it's all driven by the foundation of technology. And so a couple of things that I've taken away. One is I've learned you always have to be a student of your own profession. In technology, that's more important than anything because it's always evolving. The way that it's driven is based on the new people coming in, the young minds where they're thinking different about how you can do things that are different than in the past. And the third one, you have to think about, the jobs that are going to be available 10 years from now do not exist today. So, but the analytical skills and the thought process that you use are going to be very important to be able to be successful. And so for me, being in the business for 30 years, it seems like every 7 to 10 years, it's a new venture, it's a new journey, it's a new job, because that's how fast technology is moving. And in order to keep doing that, you have to continue to be very creative, very thoughtful. So let me pause there, and Al, and see if there's any other things that you would like me to address. But if I was leaving a couple of points for everyone, it's really understanding global intellect. How do you do business around the world? And then the digital transformation is happening no matter what industry you're in. And just think about the companies of the future. Every 7 to 10 years, the technology industry just totally transforms itself. As I mentioned, the companies that you see coming up today weren't the companies that were leading 10 years ago, and that acceleration is going to continue to happen. And so the companies that remain relevant are the ones that continue to reshape themselves, continue to have different structures and different ideas on how technology can be used around the world. So with that, I'd like to pause and pass it back over to Al.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. That's tremendous insight. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we don't have more time to go back and forth further, but I will observe that, and I hope more importantly that our attendees are observing that there's a lot of themes that are coming back to us again from some very highly experienced and respected people. One of them you just touched on is about continuously learning. Right, our field is constantly evolving. Another one is having a global perspective, having a diverse perspective. Like you, Eric, I've also had postings in different locations, different parts of our country. I was also posted overseas. I worked 5 years in Asia at one point in time. All of this gives us more and more experience. I want to thank Mr. Kelly for joining us, and we're going to dive more into these industries over time as the Next Frontier initiative flows into 2021. You should expect to hear more about these types of topics. Thank you again, Mr. Kelly, for joining us.